The following is a special production of the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. Welcome to Tough Enough, a recap and breakdown show from the MMA Outsiders following every episode of The Ultimate Fighter Season 31, Team McGregor versus Team Chandler. And now, here are your hosts, Tom Albano and Zain Bando.
Well, Zain, another week of tough and another week where I say, what the tough was that?
Yeah, I mean that's a nice but small way to put it. Again, we're back with another Tough Enough episode. Thank you all for tuning in across all of our Empty the Bench Podcast Network social medias. As yes, we do our very best to pump this out every single week. It's a new venture for us, and again, for the fifth week in a row, it seems that the same narrative is playing out that we talk about every week. When is something going to turn in the camp of Conor McGregor? And I think episode 5 redefined that camp won't be getting fixed. We lost Tom for a second, and the intro was still going, unfortunately. And I'm just going to keep speaking. Basically, in the intro, I was just saying now for the fifth week in a row, we're in a situation where Conor McGregor is simply just not acting like the coach he's supposed to be. It's every single week him being the sideshow, and nonetheless, the same happened this week with Katona versus Carlos Vera, which we'll get into a little bit later into the episode. But for now, I'm Zain Bando, one of the co-hosts of the MMA Outsiders, which you can find every single week here on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. You can find us on Tuesday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific, although we have switched up the times in previous weeks to accommodate TUF. So actually, to correct myself, you'll find us twice a week now on Tuesdays, first with our flagship show that airs at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific, and then of course followed by this show, which airs immediately after every episode of The Ultimate Fighter. But nonetheless, this is one of those seasons that Tom and I have alluded to almost every week. And he's asking me to stall for a second, so I will now be silent and turn my camera off.
Test. Hello. Zain, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I want to issue a very big apology. We are having some technical difficulties tonight with our hosting platform, StreamYard. Zain and I were each kicked out of unexpectedly during our little pre-show conversation, and all of a sudden, I guess I got kicked out as we were starting the show again. So allow me to reset. Welcome everybody now for real into Tough Enough. I am Tom Albano. That is Zain Bando. We are always here with you every week with Tough Enough. And I don't know what you were saying for the last minute or so after I got booted out.
Oh no. Basically, in so many words, I was just kind of saying how for the fifth week in a row, we always talk about almost every week, is the narrative going to change with Conor McGregor and his style of coaching, and sure enough, again for another week, it simply doesn't happen, and he goes back to being his old self, where he's not really helping his team. And this was the ineptitude of it, as we saw in tonight's episode with Brad Katona and Carlos Ferra.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just go right through the our usual little brigade of everything. Please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you are watching on our host.
Oh no! Oh no!
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Hang on one sec. And now you went out again. Your picture went out, Sam.
No, I was just stopping the camera because I thought you were resetting something, and I didn't want to.
All right. I'm gonna just off thing information. I'm gonna try to contact Nick. I'm gonna see if Nick can maybe help run the show while we work on this little issue. Unless you want to take a little delay, maybe, and we'll do this at 11:30.
I prefer we could just try to push through it now if we can. That would be ideal.
All right. I'm like afraid. I'm sorry to everybody who's watching this live. I'm just this was not really something expected. We were sitting in the room, and all of a sudden, StreamYard just started like freaking out on us, muting me, kicking him out. Like, this was bad.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing, we started to have a flow, and then it didn't materialize.
Okay, I'm gonna try to run through this one more time. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you get notified of everything here at the Empty the Bench Network, including every week that we are on here for Tough Enough, our recap show for the Ultimate Fighter, Team McGregor versus Team Chandler. Make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you are watching us, because this is a live stream, we are live on our social media platforms, as you alluded to already before, Zain, with the ETB Network, our MMA Outsiders accounts, and even this week, the ETB Sports Network account. So make sure to, if you're watching on those platforms, hit the like button. Make sure to retweet or share it if you're on Facebook. Make sure to give a follow on the various pages mentioned before, at ETB Sports, at ETB Network, at MMA Outsiders ETB. That is Zain Bando. You can find his work over at bjpen.com. He's a Bellator Rankings Committee member. I'm Tom Albano. You can find my work over at Fanside at MMA and with the PFL every show for the 2023 season. You can follow Zain at ZanDeBando99. You can follow me on Twitter at Thomas J. Albano. All right. After a little delay with those technical difficulties, I think we can finally get into the actual show.
Absolutely.
And I think, Zain, the biggest thing that happened throughout this whole show, I think, was just the tension of Brad Katona. All right. I really apologize, everybody, but that's just at this point going to have to be something that we put up with during the stream. I'll have to go on mute for like 10 seconds every time. But as I was trying to say, was Brad Katana's team. So Brad Katona, originally drafted by Team Chandler, Michael Chandler, as a result of the incident. As a result of the draft format, I should say, that was different from all the other instances of TUF, where usually you have the first fighter or the first fight that gets picked. Instead, they were grouped with the prospects and the different prospect and veteran groups. And as a result of Team Chandler being all veterans, Brad Katona, former TUF winner, former UFC fighter, ends up going on Team Chandler. Brad Katona is trains out of SBG Ireland, McGregor's team. And McGregor actually has Lee Hammond, who we'll get into at the end of the show. So on that first episode, there was all that concern about what Brad Katona could or couldn't do as a member of the team Chandler. And he said, and I remember the quote, because I even replayed it tonight during the intro, Zain, that Brad Katona's only loyalty was to Brad Katona. But it seemed pretty clear early on that there might have been some tension, some philosophical differences, you could say, between Brad Katona and Michael Chandler.
Yeah, I think Brad Katona may have taken that a little bit too far because you could tell in his actions that, Brad Katona was making statements like, oh, I'm not really going to train as hard the last week, et cetera, et cetera. Like, this is how I feel and this is how Conor did things. And I think it rubbed Chandler the wrong way in the sense that if you're going to be on Team Chandler, be on Team Chandler and be on the team that we drafted you to be on. Don't try to be somebody else that you're not. And I think that's what really came out is the real Brad Katona in those instances. And it's really no fault of Katona. He's going to act the way he's going to act. But if you're going to be on a team, you should stay loyal to that team, and regardless of past history that you had, kind of like what we've alluded to on this program as well as the MMA Outsiders. Sometimes you got to put the whole friendship allegiance thing aside, especially when you're making such a significant change as Brad Katona did, so to speak. And it's a little bit unfortunate that Chandler had to go through something like that, just considering that he seems very loyal to his team. It seems like he really likes all of the guys and has a rapport with all of them. So to see Katona act in this way was a little bit surprising, especially given what he said in the very first episode of the season.
Yeah, indeed. You're right, Zain. And by the way, you provided a little, I guess we can call it a little preview for tomorrow's MMA Outsiders episode when you're mentioning all the different, about putting allegiances aside and such. Now that topic comes up tomorrow in a different kind of circumstance.
Absolutely, it sure does.
But yeah, here we are with Brad Katona and Michael Chandler. And I mean, at one point you can maybe say it's philosophical differences because here's Brad Katona saying basically what he wants to. And even Michael Chandler even kind of admitted, he kind of understood what Katona is doing because, I mean, Michael Chandler makes a point. After the first round, Zain, TUF becomes not a team competition anymore. Once
No,
you
it
get
does
to
not.
the final matchups, it's every man for himself at that point.
Absolutely.
So you have Katona who doesn't want to, former TUF winner, wants to put, keep his weaknesses on the downside, and he wants to showcase his strengths. He wants to watch film on the fighter, and eventually they do, but it kind of does rub Chandler the wrong way. But it especially, Zain, rubs his team the wrong way when he ends up talking to Coach Kavanaugh, Coach Roddy, and McGregor and all of them as they're entering for their practice in the TUF facility at the Apex. And Brad Katona spends a little time talking to his guys, and meanwhile the rest of Team Chandler is waiting on the bus. And here's everybody on Team Chandler just basically kind of fed up. Roosevelt Roberts basically saying, "Oh, Brad Katona," in the confessional, we can call it. Brad Katona Roosevelt Roberts calling Brad Katona a diva and basically saying, "Go put on a blue shirt."
Yeah, and I mean, Roosevelt Roberts has every right to say that. I mean, Brad Katona was acting that way the entire episode, and who knows how he was acting even during the pre-taped filming that we never get a chance to see. I'm sure it was even more tense than what was shown on ESPN tonight. But Roosevelt Roberts has every right to say that if I was a member of the other team and I saw a guy who had allegiances to the opposite coach, I think I would be just as fed up too. So I actually think good on Roosevelt Roberts for calling him out, because if it's not going to be Roosevelt Roberts or any of these other guys that have, veteran type experience and who have been in the UFC before, then who's going to do it? So I really do commend Roberts for doing so. And I don't really think it taught Katona a lesson, but it certainly sent a message that that's where his own team stood based on what Katona was showing and what his actions ended up being. And unfortunately, Tom was booted from the stream again. But basically, that's my take on Roosevelt Roberts and why I think he had all the justification in the world to call his fellow teammate Brad Katona a diva for his relationship with Conor McGregor. And we are just going to wait for him to return. And again, we greatly apologize for those who are watching the stream as we speak. As you guys know, this is something that we really like to do for the. Okay.
All right, I'm sorry. What were you saying at the end?
Oh no! I was simply just stating another apology for the technical mishap. That's all.
Okay.
And I was and I was just recapping what my take was before you were booted.
Okay.
That's all.
That's all right. So Roosevelt Roberts. I mean, I agreed with you, Zain. Kind of was making pretty good points about, hey, put on the blue shirt. But I mean, again, ultimately, at the end of the day, as much as we talk about a team competition, it is going to be every man for himself very soon. But credit to Roberts, and I also want to give credit. I mean, credit to Chandler as well for having that recognition. And I actually do want to give credit to John Kavanagh. So John Kavanagh basically said he was not going to take part in Carlos Vero's training and cornering because technically he is Brad Katona's coach and therefore would know Katona's strengths and weaknesses pretty well and didn't want to give Vera the edge on that.
Yeah, which I think props to John Kavanagh, a longtime MMA trainer, obviously most famous for cornering Conor McGregor in all of his major fights during his career. But I think that's a well put stance by Kavanagh to really tell Vera, like, look, this is my circumstance. This is a guy I've had for years, and I can't put myself in hot water in terms of a conflict of interest. And I think he absolutely did the right thing in that scenario.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. I mean, it's not like but you said he addressed Vera. It wasn't like he just only addressed Vera. He actually, said it at the very start of the season. They said at the very start of the season, like whoever fights him, is going to be in that kind of circumstance. And I think again, Zain, this kind of points. I think there should be less blame on Kavanagh not doing his job, and I think more of this should once again go on Conor McGregor for he only brings John Kavanagh. He only brings.
I think what Tom was alluding to saying was that he only brought a select few trainers, which is why. Oh, continue.
Yeah, basically, you need others around. Basically, just those two.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was attempting to finish your sentence for you
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I'm sorry. I don't know what the hell is going on tonight. This is unlike anything I've ever seen with StreamYard.
Same here.
But yeah, basically, I again, Conor McGregor I think some of this episode too, Zain, is just further frustration about how Conor McGregor acts. I mean, they even pointed out again on Twitter that, once again, this is Conor McGregor just using the show as a platform for himself. He's not interested in coaching these guys, really. He's not real as much as he says he is. He's not interested in a fight with Chandler now. I think it's using a platform for him.
Yeah, it totally is. And we'll get into more of the fight here in just a second. But the way he pretends to care about the fight itself and saying that things are beautiful when they're actually not, when most of the time his guys' punches are like clearly missing by a long shot, and he still thinks it's quality stuff. I think that's a guy that has a little bit too much time on his hands and is maybe taking himself a little bit too seriously.
And I think somebody who's kind of, failed to recognize, where MMA is at right now when he hasn't really, he hasn't paid much attention to it since 2016.
No, he really hasn't. Only one win since 2016. It's very disappointing as someone who's watched every single one of his fights for the last 10 years. So, yeah.
Let's get into the backstories, by the way. Carlos Vera mentioning how he still represents his country as he came over here. How basically, Zain, like he tried mixed martial arts. I should say he trained in martial arts earlier in his life, but he really didn't turn to MMA until about early 20s, and now he's what? Early mid 30s?
Yeah, he's like 31, 32, somewhere in there.
And he's still looking for his first big break with the UFC, as are the rest of the prospects.
Oh yeah, 100%. It was definitely a good backstory. He's someone to watch out for sure. And he's someone who I had a lot of hype behind going into it. I thought his record was impressive. I think we praised him on our pre-show. We thought that he could be someone that could be a dark horse later on in the season. We'll get into how the fight actually went in a little bit, but for sure, a backstory that makes you want to root for a guy like that, especially given his well, not stature per se, but especially given just his story and the way that he was able to get to where he is now. I thought was pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Brad Katona, on the other hand, I mean, former TUF winner. They keep saying he's going to be the first two-time winner of TUF. Technically, that's not true because technically you did have that TUF redemption season, which was all former TUF people, which Jesse, what's his name, won?
Jesse Taylor.
Jesse Taylor, right. But of course, Jesse Taylor ended up blowing that opportunity as well, but that's a whole other story. But Brad Katona, I mean, one of his losses was to Merab Dvalishvili. I mean, he didn't really have, I know it wasn't the greatest UFC run, but it wasn't a bad run per se. But now he needs that second chance. And I think, Zain, as I kind of alluded to at the start of the season, as we kept going, I think Brad Katona is a favorite here at bantamweight, especially that some of the current prospects, the top two prospects from Team McGregor, are now out.
Yeah, I mean, given where we are at this point in the season, I think he has to be the clear favorite, given that he's trying to be the first Ultimate Fighter contestant to do this twice. So we'll see for sure.
And he actually ends up performing pretty well in the fight. I mean, he performed well, but let's be very real, Zain. The fight sucked.
Yeah, the fight was a snooze fest. For those of you who haven't seen it, it was basically just Katona taking Vera down and trying to neutralize him. There were no instances in the fight where, it could turn and get really exciting. And I think it was just Katana going in there and doing what he does best and, showing that experience is going to trump youthfulness, although we were just talking about that Vera's in his mid-30s. But from a MMA perspective, he's still very youthful and green in the sport. And I think it just showed how much more consistent Katona is and how much better he's gotten in the last several years since his last UFC stint. And I think he really put that on full display despite the fight not being the most exciting.
Yeah, I mean, he pretty much, Zain, he pretty much, I think the striking was okay on both ends, but Brad Katona, I mean, once he was able to get a hold of Vera, it just seemed like he was able to just control the action from there on. And basically that was really all that Katona really needed to do. I don't get why Conor McGregor at the end was going nuts about, they need a I don't get why he was saying, why they need 5, championship fights are 5 rounds. They should be fighting 3 rounds. Michael, have you ever fought 5 rounds? And he's kind of just degrading Chandler as if Chandler hasn't been in some of the greatest mixed martial arts fights of all time.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be Conor McGregor without him, saying or doing that sort of thing. And, that's always going to stir the pot. And of course, when you have a season that's, a washout with, one team dominating the other, you're going to get frustrated and there is going to be tension. And that's going to be the start of something bigger next week, which we'll get into potential speculation as to what that could be. But that's just Conor McGregor being Conor McGregor. I was not surprised to see any of that take place. And really, I think it's only going to boil over as the season progresses and his guys continue to struggle, to be quite frank. So.
But again, it points to just how he's really not taking this competition seriously. Chandler admitted he takes this competition seriously, even though he knows the team format ends at the quarterfinals.
For sure, without a doubt.
I mean, Conor McGregor, I mean, he can point to the fact that he tries to do team bonding. He can try to point to the fact that he did a McGregor fast session at the start of this episode on a rowing machine with all of his guys. But, I mean, in reality, he is not preparing them well. Chandler is preparing them like legit fighters.
Absolutely. At this point, I think the only thing that Conor McGregor has a chance to win is the coach's challenge, Tom.
I'm very curious to see what the coach's challenge for these guys is going to be.
Me too.
Probably a proper 12 drinking marathon.
Hey, I could very well see it, or I could see it for a end of season party too. So you never know.
For sure. All right, let's get into next week's fight, Zain. The number one seed in the lightweight, the number one prospect seed for the lightweights, Lee Hammond for Team McGregor, who also trains at SBG Ireland, is going to take on Kurt Hollabaugh representing Team Chandler.
Yeah, I feel like Kurt Hollabaugh should, in theory, win this fight, but knowing that Conor has gotten a little bit out of whack, this is where, in my opinion, if Lee Hammond doesn't win this fight, I think the season is toast.
Yeah, this is pretty much last chance. But my only concern, Zain, is I know Kurt Hollabaugh is an older veteran, but Lee Hammond only has like 5 professional fights to his record, and I don't really like the competition that he's faced. I feel like a veteran like Hollabaugh might have a little more of an edge on him here, but it is the fire of McGregor. And the fact that it's Hammond, his training partner, his teammate over at SBG Ireland, does that mean that Conor's going to take this training session more seriously and the fire's going to be lit under him and Hammond might actually pull through?
Yeah, probably. But knowing Conor, I think he's going to take himself too seriously, and he might burn Lee Hammond out. Who knows? We'll see how the episode plays out. But I don't really see any surprises. Hollabaugh is the better fighter. He has UFC experience, Dana White Contender Series experience. I don't see how Hollabaugh loses this fight or really has any trouble. I think he finishes it before it goes the 2-round distance.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I did predict then. Did I not predict last week? I said Kurt Hollabaugh is going to get this done in the first round, I think.
Yeah, and I happen to disagree with you. But now after watching tonight's fight, I have to side with you and say that Hammond, I think, is going to struggle.
Well, there's one other thing that gets me a little curious, and that makes me a little hesitant about my early prediction heading in, and that's because of the episode 6 teaser, the last thing we're going to talk about here. So it seems like this Conor Chandler blow up in the octagon is going to happen during next week's show, and that means, Dan, we might get the footage of Dana White running into the octagon, saying, "Oh no, oh no."
Yeah, which I'm actually really excited about because that was one of the funniest parts of the initial season teaser was Dana saying, get out of my way, which ended up becoming a Twitter meme. I hope it had blown up a little bit more. I don't think it really did. But yeah, episode 6 is definitely going to have some weird tension one way or another, whether Conor gets his first win as a coach or if Chandler keeps it rolling with 6-0.
Yeah, the two theories I have right now are Lee Hammond's going to get a finish. Lee Hammond's going to win, and Conor's just going to, go all flippant and rub it in Chandler's face too much. Congratulations, you get a win, Conor. And then the other theory is something kind of like the last couple of weeks where, Conor's going to say, okay, third round. Judge's decision is in. What do you mean? We need a third round. And he's just going to completely lose it.
Yeah, that could very well be the. I could see any of those scenarios that you just laid out on the table for Conor to go insane, for sure.
Yeah, so a lot of different theories, a lot of possibilities. I just want to see Dana running into the octagon. That's all.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think that's going to be the best part of the episode, no doubt. And Tom, unfortunately for the ESPN, go ahead.
There we go.
Okay.
I was saying it happened again.
Oh, I got you. Yeah. I was just going to say, unfortunately for the hardcore ESPN supporters, I don't think the ratings are helping either, and I'm very curious to see the ratings for not only this episode but last week's episode. I have not quite seen what those were yet, but I'm sure the ratings are sadly just decreasing with each passing week.
Yeah, no, I'm going to be curious to see what the ratings for this episode were, and if they gotta hope that little teaser at the end of the episode is going to get some people interested in watching next episode, because I mean, if they don't deliver next week, Zain, I mean, you could just throw this season away into where is it here? They could just throw the season away into here.
Yeah, not only throw the season away, but throw the December 16th potential fight away too.
I mean, that might already be thrown away if Conor really doesn't want to fight. But I'm gonna one you up, Zain. Dana White running to the octagon is the best moment of the next episode. It might be the best moment of all season.
More than likely true, and I couldn't even give you no, actually, I'd say last week's fight is probably my pick right now for fight of the season. What about you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Wells versus Valia, this fight of the season for me so far.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon unless a miracle happens in 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So, yeah.
All right. I think before we have any more difficulties, it's time for us to get out of here. I know this is kind of a shorter episode, but I mean, it's not shorter, but all the difficulties technical problems screwed us up. And well, this episode, I mean, point blank, to be very honest with everybody out there, it sucked.
Yeah, we're gonna be the first to admit that this episode was not great, but I guess it defined how bad the episode was too. So there you go.
All right. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get notified of every Tough Enough stream and everything else we do at the Empty the Bench Network. Make sure to tune into MMA Outsiders episode 44 tomorrow, by the way.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to be talking a lot about the recaps that took place over this past weekend. We're going to do a preview of the next UFC Vegas card and so much more. A lot of different news angles, so be sure to tune into all of that with Tom and myself tomorrow morning.
And make sure to follow at MMA Outsiders ETB, at ETB Network. The sports, and shout out to ETB Sports for allowing us to stream on their platform for this week's show. Sadly, it had to be with all these technical problems. If you're watching us on our Facebook or Twitter pages, make sure to give follows, make sure to share the show or retweet the show, give a like. That's Zain. You can find his work over at bjpen.com, Bellator Rankings Committee member. Follow him at Zambano99. I'm Tom Albano. Follow me at Thomas J. Albano. I'm a contributor to Fanside MMA, and I do content for the PFL as they have their seasonal shows throughout 2023. All right, time for us to get the hell out of here. For Zain, I'm Tom. We'll see you next week for Tough Enough. We'll see you tomorrow morning for episode 44 of the MMA Outsiders.
Sounds good. See you guys next week.